Welcome to the TCS Woman Podcast, where the ladies of the top contractor school are going to get together to discuss what it's like to be a woman in construction, leadership, and navigating the balance between it all. Your host for the TCS Woman Podcast will be Carla Goldammer, who has been in construction for almost 30 years with D&J Site Construction. She will be accompanied by a rotation of co-hosts that include Elizabeth Reinman of RK Reinman Construction, Sandra Albert of Bay Country Contractors, Lillian Calloway of K&L Industries, and Kelsey Wright of Pro Line Parking Lot Maintenance. Let's get started.
Well, welcome to TCS Woman Podcast. I'm joined today with two co-hosts, and I will let them introduce themselves. So, Carla, if you want to introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Carla Goldammer, president of D&J Site Construction in the Rio Grande Valley in Texas.
And Miss Sandra.
Hi, I'm Sandra Albert. I'm vice president of Bay Country Contractors located here in Leonardtown, Maryland.
And I'm Lillian Calloway, president of K&L Industries out of Canby, Oregon. And we're part of TCS Women, who are a group of women that are gathered together, and we're learning how to succeed in a predominantly male-driven world. And we're excited to have everybody join us to discuss. Today, we're going to discuss workplace diversity. And that's a big subject, guys. When we think of workplace diversity, Sandra, what is something that you think of when you hear the words workplace diversity?
So specifically what comes to mind are language barriers when it comes to workplace diversity. I do have some employees that English is not their first, second, or third primary language. So when it comes to diversity, it's great to bring in other cultures, other nationalities, but there are some difficulties. And one of them for me, I guess, is language barrier.
And Carla, what are your thoughts on that one?
I think about the same, the language barriers that we, have to deal with and work around every day. And then, in the office, it's mainly, predominantly women. And so when we throw a male in the mix of it, how does he fit in with our bannery, and vice versa? When I'm able to hire females out on the job site, how do they fit in out there?
It's interesting because when I hear workplace diversity, and this is true confessions here, my first thought was, yum, a variety of food from different cultures. It has nothing to do with work. It's everything about the different cultures that bring such amazing food that we don't ever think of. So that's a plug for the great part of workplace diversity. But I know for us, we have a very diverse employee group, from Islanders to Hispanics to just American people. All right, American white people, but I love the diversity of people, because it's not even just diverse as far as men versus women or culture versus culture, but every single one of us are unique and different. And so in that alone, we bring our own separate aspects to the table, because we are different, and we have to learn how to embrace those differences. And I think even going back to our last podcast, talking about the having women in the workplace and what's the advantage of that. That's part of workplace diversity, because women bring a whole different aspect to the workplace than men bring. In general, women bring organization, we bring thoughtfulness, we bring aspects that men never think of. But outside of those things, what are some other subjects you think about in a diverse employee group?
Well, right now it can be the age difference.
Oh.
You have somebody in their 50s, early 60s, and you're bringing in the 20-year-olds.
Technology.
technology. I just don't understand them. You don't make them the way they used to, you know. It's hard sometimes mingling the age groups together.
Yeah. Anything you think of, Sandra?
When I think of workplace diversity, I think about just, it kind of goes off of age, but it's more of, your Common Core versus your old school math, or just how people were raised, and their way of thinking, their way of processing information, how you communicate with them. There are some people on our team that they cannot access email, so it's figuring out ways to include them in the diversity according to, like Caller said, their age or just their how they were raised.
Their skill level. Yeah, I look at that. I mean, as you were speaking, I thought, it's true in both avenues, not just men and women, but age, culture, all those kind of things. When we bring someone new in, I know when we bring younger people in the office and I have some problem with the computer, who do I go to? It's not my peer who's my same age. I say, hey, can you help me with this program? I don't get it. I don't understand it. And they look at it and, 3 little clicks and everything's all fixed and doesn't make any sense to me. But to have the younger people who are helping to teach us in that technology part that we don't understand because we weren't raised with those kind of things and didn't have to learn that in school, but also vice versa, the techniques that some of the older guys out in the field, that they can teach these younger guys, but they have no idea how to be creative and solve a problem. There was something I can't even remember recently, but there was a problem that happened. I wish I could remember. There was a problem that happened that one of our younger guys was absolutely 100% stumped. And he called and Keith was talking to him and he talked him through this over the phone, how to take this shortcut to get to where he needed to fix this problem. And the young guy was like, how did you even know that? There's so many things that time just teaches us of wisdom that we don't even realize we picked up, that younger people need that. Other cultures need that. We need to pick up things from other cultures to understand how to better celebrate someone, how to better understand different people. And that's one of those things. So what are the benefits you guys see, that you in particular see, of having a diverse workplace in your companies?
I'd say for Bay Country, it's perspective. It is increased creativity and innovation, by bringing in people with different backgrounds, different education. It creates an environment that produces different opinions, which then also can bring different solutions.
Yeah, I agree with Sandra 100% on that.
Absolutely. That's one of the things I think as I thought about this subject, the one thing I thought is that in general, I don't think our society in general appreciates the uniqueness of the diversity that we all have. That, and this is my own opinion, is that we have learned not to appreciate other people's opinions and values, and being diverse keeps those doors open so that we can learn new things. And I mean, there's ways that they do asphalt in other countries that you're like, how do they get away with that? Or where did they even think that was possible? And yet they do it and it works fine for them. Different countries, different regulations, so it wouldn't work for us. But that's something you stick in your hat and you pull it out at the right time and go, oh, I saw it done this way, when I was in Mexico or when I was some other country. But those are some of the things that I think as far as being diverse is that we have to learn that different isn't wrong, it's just different. And oftentimes we forget that. We forget that value. And even going from men to women, because obviously we're all functioning in a predominantly male-driven industry. And what are the advantages? What are the advantages? I know I asked this question to Carla last time, but Sandra, what are the advantages of having men and women in the workplace? And then we'll go a step further after you answer that one.
Well, we're both built so differently, right? Men think very logically. They're very, sometimes their thinking is complex. I think when it comes to women, we're very empathetic and we lead with emotion. So I think when you take the ability to have a man who has these, physical strengths, and is very, point A to point B, there's no wavering, it's very logical to them. And then you add in a woman who it's like point A, B, C, D, E, and we add in the emotion to it. I think it creates for a workplace that allows people to be supported in their strengths, but also supported in their emotional and mental health. Like it's this balance of, in the, like specifically in the, in our construction industry, it's tough. I'm a construction worker. I'm a man. And, this idea of what he as a man is supposed to be. But then when you add women into the workplace, we're like, it's okay to take your hard hat off. It's okay. You don't have to be this tough guy. Like, we're here to, support you and to feed into this emotional side that maybe you don't get from your other male coworkers.
Anything to add to that, Carla?
Maybe just a little bit. I know recently in TCS, we've talked about this all the time, that, it's just a basic human desire to want to be heard. And I think sometimes when you have a woman in the position of leadership, they give that to the men, they just want to be heard. They want their opinion heard, and, to know that their opinion matters. I think, brings a lot.
And so now let's take this a step further. We've done men versus women. What about our culture and adding in other cultures? What are the advantages of that?
I think bringing in, if you think about our culture as a whole as being here like in America, I think we've really lost who we are. We get so wrapped up in our social media and our revenue numbers and our status of the car and the house that we drive. And when you look outside of culture, outside of America, those things, those status symbols of social media in your home and things like that, those are not where a lot of those other cultures have their focus. So I think by bringing in a diverse culture, it puts into perspective of things that we think are just so important, kind of, we're not really talking about politics, but we're dabbling in it a little bit, right? Like, we as Americans are so passionate, and it's one way or the other, you believe in this or you don't. But when you look at other countries and the way that they do their politics and things, like, I know specifically people on our team, like, they don't really care who's going to win the election, because in their country, it's not necessarily driven down their throats and they're made to stand on one side or the other. So I think by bringing in diversity, bringing in other culture, it brings in other practices, and it evens out this like self-centered culture that Americans have, developed.
And Carla?
I feel that being raised here in the area that I'm from, I think we have our own special little culture that we're born and raised in. Um, and in the construction world, we just probably not have brought in a lot of different cultures yet into it. Because the area that I'm in is mainly Hispanic, and it's always been that way. So I feel like I've grown up in their culture and not the other way around.
That's cool. I like that. I mean, I like that. I like that you have that experience. And I think that's true probably in a lot of smaller communities, that if there's like where we're at, there's a lot of farm countries and Hispanics tend to be in a lot of those, but we also have a lot of Russians in our area as well. And so all of our kids went to school with a lot of both of those cultures and gained an understanding for it, which actually has been very advantageous, um, as as we're in the business, because they help us understand, because we have to understand some of the holidays and some of the foods and some of the do's and don'ts that you don't typically think of, or that someone's like, oh well, I need this week off because it's this week of whatever. And oftentimes as an American, we can say, well, you have to take your vacation. That's just what it is. But we also have the advantage to say, you know what, I can respect that and I can give you that time off, and we can deal with that because I want to respect your lifestyle. It's different than mine, but that's okay. And I think a lot of it is just about acceptance and understanding, and that as Sandra said, that we don't have to be black and white. You know, the American way isn't the end of all ends, that the top way to do things. We have learned, I believe that we as Americans have learned how to be very selfish. And in other countries that don't have our advantages, they've had to be very creative in the way they move up in the world and the things they get, because they don't have the advantages that we have. And so they've had to learn, and they've had to learn how to work really hard. I can tell you, most of the time, most of our other culture people by far work harder than those that are raised in America, because they don't think they're owed anything. They know that they have to work hard to gain because that's a culture how they were raised. And I know that's how I was raised, was working hard, but I don't believe that that is that work ethic is necessarily taught these days. I think there's a desire there, but because the younger generations believe so much about how they're owed life because they're American, that they've lost sight of, in order to get where we are, we have to work hard. And I actually have a plaque on my wall in my other office that says, um, if you don't work, neither does your dream.
Mhm.
And that's true, but that is something I think that other cultures bring to our American culture, is that they know how to work hard because they weren't given all the advantages that we have as Americans. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm going to say that, your culture, specifically, I've noticed inside of our company, like our Hispanic guys, they are not wasteful at all, because they do not have the ability where they came from in their culture to afford waste. And so they become super resourceful, and they're very conservative when it comes to using product. And sometimes, it's like, it's okay, you can apply another layer, of whatever it is you need, but they're used to, there's not this unlimited amount of material and resources. So again, I applaud them for teaching others on our team that, you can reuse this wood, or you can make this stretch a little bit longer.
I agree. That is probably the biggest thing I appreciate about other cultures is that they're not entitled.
Mhm.
And I mean, this is a generalization. So for the most part, they're not entitled. There's always someone there, because I'm sure if we went to their country and we heard them talk, they'd be saying the same thing. But we see it mostly in our own because this is where we are. But that's what I appreciate, is just the different ideas that they bring and help us open our own minds up and make us more of a full, of a well-rounded company. I appreciate that, because we can have all the aspects and celebrate each other. And that's what the diversity is about, is celebrating each other, whether it's male or female or Hispanic or African American or any of those things, but it's celebrating the unique value that each one of us has, is that we were all designed differently. And I think that's one of the things that TCS Women is here for, because us breaking into this male dominant world is we are bringing our own diverse opinions and thoughts and processes into a male world, as Sandra referred to, the macho thing and the typical. I know growing up, it was only, I thought macho men were the only ones that really worked in the construction industry. And now that I'm in it, we've been able to just open that up to, yeah, they're macho, they know how to get things done, but they're still thoughtful and kind and sensitive, and they have all those same emotions. And sometimes there are days when I feel like I'm dealing with a bunch of high school girls instead of grown men.
So true.
Yeah.
But I don't think, and it could be just because I grew up in the construction world. As a little kid, your view is so different from a child to an adult. I remember the house I grew up in seemed so ginormous, and then we moved, and a few years later we go back and I'm like, gosh, it seems so ginormous, and it's just a normal size house. But I think that happens also to our young kids and the people that come into the construction world, is that people just in general think, because construction guys are tough, because they have to be working out there in the weather and in the different climates and accomplish things and in the roads and down in the dirt, that it just creates a sense of macho. and and the reality is they're just people, and we all lose sight of that. So I think the diverse part is that we're all uniquely made, and we have to learn how to value those things. But before we end, I want to hear some things that you have specifically appreciated about the diverse cultures that you're in. And I know it's probably harder for Carla, because that's just normal life. That's how she grew up. But what are some of those things that you've learned to really appreciate about the diversity of your culture that you have in your workplace?
I'm going to speak off of experience of something that happened for me in the last week and a half. And that is that taking for granted that everyone has access to a bank account, and that they actually have an account. It's just something that people don't really think about when other people have come here from other countries and from other cultures, that not everyone has these basic things that we as Americans take for granted. And so I had a new employee start, and we do direct deposit, and he had provided all of his banking information. And long story short, the payroll company came back and said, hey, this actually is not a viable account. And so I sat and I, tried to talk with him, and I said, hey, like, he provided me the bank account information again, and I cross-referenced it, and I said, no, this is right. And after speaking with the payroll company again, they ended up providing a letter to me from the bank that said this is not a viable account. And so I wrote all the information down, and I said, go to the bank and see what they say. And he came back and he said, my name isn't on the bank account. And he said, I don't have a bank account. Basically it was, I'm going to use my friend's account. And so just, something like that, right? When it comes to culture and diversity, like, it's not something that you experience on a regular basis. Most people that are going to have a bank account, and they're going to have it in their name. And so then it was, okay, well, how can we assist you? How can we help you get a bank account open in your name? What does that look like? If I cut you a check today, you still don't have a bank to go deposit in. You could go to a check casting place. So again, for me, it's reminding myself of diversity and culture, and we're not all wired the same. So that was an eye-opening experience for me this week.
Wow, good for you. And that opens opportunity for you to walk alongside them and teach them these things, because he probably had no understanding. He didn't know that he was doing anything not
No,
normal.
to him it was like, I don't have one, so my friend's going to let me use their account.
Yeah,
but that
we
doesn't
have,
work.
yeah, we have 2 or 3 guys that we actually, for the most part, the 50 some people are all direct deposit, but there's a couple guys that they just don't have accounts. And that's partially because we're second chance employers and they can't have a bank account. But so we do offer those checks, but they're few and far in between now, because you can also get like cash cards where you can deposit into these credit card type things. But any experiences from you, Carla?
No, I deal with that on a regular basis. I use the cash card too. If I'll go to Walmart and buy them one and help them set it up, and so they can get their deposit and everything. I guess for me, it's probably the respect that I get from the guys. We had an incident that happened last week, and so I'm usually at the safety meetings, but I don't always talk to the guys or have anything to talk to them about. But Monday I did, and I got a little heated about it. And, they all walked off and they asked the foreman, why is, they have a special nickname for me. Why is she so mad this morning? And so he had to explain, like, well, because she trusts all of us to have her back. And now she feels like, we didn't have her back in this instance. And so I appreciate that they hold me on a different level of respect, and hopefully next time they'll understand when they have my back, they have everybody's back here. So
That's awesome. I would agree with that. I know that I have a different respect than my husband or my son. And for the most part, I appreciate that. And there are times when I don't, because I'm just me. I want them to be able to come talk to me. But because I'm a female, they think sometimes that I don't really know what they're talking about. And that's just something that we have to battle along the way of when they go and talk to Keith Jr. or Senior, they'll direct them back to me to say, no, you can talk to her. She knows, she's the one who's going to walk you through this. I'm not going to do anything about it. So I think that's one of those diversity things that we have to understand about that. But also on the other side, I appreciate the respect that they give to me as a female, that they will hold my door, they will pull out chairs, they will make sure I'm okay, they won't let me walk alone late at night in the workplaces. So they do watch out for me, and I appreciate that because I know it's because they care. And so I think in general that as we're winding down here, that workplace diversity is not a bad thing, and it's not that we have to change to be just like someone else, but that we all have to understand that we are uniquely made in God's eyes for unique purposes. And we have to learn how to appreciate that. And in our instance, we're learning as females how to appreciate the strength of men that they can do out on the job site that oftentimes we as females can't, because we just don't have that physical strength. But I think also the advantage is that men are learning how to appreciate the women in the construction world, because they have to use less brain power to think about how to get these processes done. And I think they truly appreciate that. Not that they can't do it, but that it takes us so much less time than them. It's like they have to step into a whole different world to think about the office processes and the things that get done there. So I think diversity is a complement to all of our personalities and all of our workplaces, that we can get a whole lot more done by being diverse and accepting each other's cultures. Besides the food, gotta throw that in there. Food's amazing. I love when some of our Hispanic wives and spouses bring some of the foods that are there that are normal meals for them, that I tell you, it's kind of like that decoration thing when you see Martha Stewart put this sheet on a table and it looks fantastic, like she spent hours, and I put a sheet on a table and it looks like it's a sheet on a table.
Yeah.
You know? So I think that's what some of this culture stuff brings in, is that they are so uniquely made and so used to those kind of things that it works for them. And we have to learn how to appreciate each other's differences and use that, put them in those places that they can use all those strengths and be of value to our companies. And I think we have that. Men, women, Hispanics, Russians, all the different cultures that are in our world are all useful because they have unique things that they were raised with that we have no idea. And with that, thanks for joining me and having a discussion today. But I also want to encourage those that are watching that we have a meetup in November with TCS, and we would love to have you all there. And we also, in January, is our kickoff, which I'm excited for, and we will have a special women's event in January, a luncheon to really get to know each other. And we'd love to have everyone listening to come join us there. So have a good day, and thanks for joining me, guys.
Welcome to the TCS Woman Podcast, where the ladies of the top contractor school are going to get together to discuss what it's like to be a woman in construction, leadership, and navigating the balance between it all. Your host for the TCS Woman Podcast will be Carla Goldammer, who has been in construction for almost 30 years with D&J Site Construction. She will be accompanied by a rotation of co-hosts that include Elizabeth Reinman of RK Reinman Construction, Sandra Albert of Bay Country Contractors, Lillian Calloway of K&L Industries, and Kelsey Wright of Pro Line Parking Lot Maintenance. Let's get started.